Hey, good morning guys, Tush coming at you. It's Friday, July the 27th. Happy it's Friday. Spend a little more time in the garage over the weekend. And we're going to be spending it on the 73 Triumph TR6. We got a few jobs to do, having just gotten it out of storage. We want to change the plugs, I think. Hasn't had new plugs in a while. And I pulled a couple of them yesterday and it looks like they could use new plugs. We're going to do the valves. Haven't done the valves since last year, so we'll do, while we've got the plugs out, we may as well adjust the valves. It makes it a little easier to do that. And the other thing we want to do, it's a little bit more work, is to actually install an electric fan, a pusher fan on the outside of the radiator, which will entail me having to take off my stainless steel shroud, which will be a little bit involved. But we want to install an electric fan because I have a trip planned for this car coming up at the end of September down to Fontana Dam, North Carolina for the six-pack trials. And I've always had issues at the border, waiting in line to pass through the border. Sometimes the wait can be 20 to 30 minutes to, I think we've waited more than an hour at the border sometimes. And this car has a tendency to overheat in those conditions. So what we want to do is just put an electric fan in for those type of situations where we need just a little extra help from the for the mechanical fan if we're standing in traffic for a long period of time. The car is never actually overheated, like boiled over, but what happens is it gets so hot in the engine bay that it starts running poorly because it starts vaporizing the fuel in the carburetors or in the fuel line, so it starts running very, very rough. So I think with the addition of the electric fan, just with a manual switch, we're not going to put a thermostat on it, we're just going to have a manual switch for it. That'll help the situation if we ever run into that situation again. And I'm sure we will, again this September when we're waiting at the border to pass through to the US and to get back into Canada on the way back. So that's what the plan is, those few little jobs. Maybe we'll change the oil as well. The oil doesn't have a lot of miles on it, but it's been sitting all winter, so we might actually go ahead and change the oil as well. It's not critical. We do want to get a new battery for it. This is just a backup battery I used to get myself home. You can see I've got a improvised hold down strap on there because that battery is a little taller than it should be. I've been running an Optima battery for the last, I think I put this Optima in about 11 years ago, so I've had a good service life out of that battery. It still does take a charge, but it doesn't hold the charge very long, so I think it's time for a new battery. So we'll be picking up a new battery to put in this car as well. I've been looking at the prices on the Optima batteries, and man, are they expensive. It was expensive when I bought that one back 11 years ago, but I think they're probably close to about 300 bucks now with tax up here, so we may go with something other than an Optima battery this time around. Anyway, that's it for now. Enough rambling. We'll get to work and we'll start taking out that radiator protection, not radiator protection shield, the radiator duct. Alright, that's about 15 minutes of work and a little more careful work than what I've been used to lately. I'm used to, turning wrenches on things like this that don't require you to be careful about not marking up painted surfaces. So we went a little bit more slowly. We managed to get things out, I think, without any damage. The good thing is I can do a little bit of cleaning while I've got everything removed. It's a little bit dirty in behind there and a little bit dirty down there, so it'll give me a bit more access than I normally have to do a little cleaning. Oh, it looks pretty good for an 11-year-old restoration, I'd say. I think I've kept up with it fairly well since this car has been driven quite a bit. Anyway, here's the shroud here. We did manage to get it out in two pieces. It's a three-piece shroud. We just took off the right-hand side to get it out a little easier just for some clearance. But we'll give this a good cleaning and a good polish up before it goes back in. So I'm happy that I'll be able to do that as well. And we'll probably give the top of the rad a quick aluminum polish as well while we're there. So, job one done. I guess we'll move on to our next job, and that will be to remove the spark plugs. And in order to do that on this car, and I'm not sure if it's the same for all TR6s, but to get to the number one plug, you have two different options. either take the rear of the housing of the alternator off, or undo the alternator, take the belt off and swing the alternator down just to get clearance to get a spark plug wrench in there. I'm not sure if this is unique to my car. I don't think it is, but I've never really heard of anybody having to do this to get the #1 spark plug out. So, and I can't remember on my other TR6, I used to have another 73 TR6, whether I get that plug out with the alternator in position. So anyway, we're going to, in this case, normally I would take the back of this off. It's usually just, I think there's a couple of different screws just to pop the back of this off, but I think what I'll do, this belt seems like it could probably use a little bit of a tightening, so I think what we'll do is we'll just undo the alternator and then swing that down out of the way. We're going to mark the plug wires. I'm sure I can figure that out how they go, but easier just to mark them with a little bit of masking tape and a Sharpie. Okay, we've got the alternator swung out of the way, and we've got the, we took the distributor cap off. We labeled all the wires so we can put it back on there without any issues, without any screw-ups, hopefully. I guess I could rectify my having to move the alternator issue to get to #1 plug by getting a longer belt. But this is purportedly supposed to be a TR6 belt on here. Anyway, we're not going to bother going that route. We'll just drop this back. All I've done is really taken out one bolt, which is the adjuster at the top, and then just swung it down. Pop the belt off, so it's not really that big of a headache to do that. Again, we'll do a little bit of cleaning while we're in here. Clean the bottom of the alternator up. Anyway, that gives us good access to the plugs, so we'll go ahead and take the plugs out now. Alright, plugs are out, and as you can see, looks like we're running pretty rich, although it's a tough call because remember, this car just came out of storage. It's probably got really bad gas in it. I'm pretty sure I idled it when I got home. What you need to really do with these cars is take them for a good run, and as soon as you get home, you know, shut it off, cut it off, and then let it cool down, and then check the plugs to get a good accurate reading. But I'm definitely thinking this car is definitely running a little bit rich regardless, so we'll change the plugs, and like I said, we'll take it for a good run, get some fresh gas in it, take it for a good run, and then we'll do an engine cut, and we'll have a look at the plugs at a later date. Incidentally, for those of you who want to know what I'm running currently in my car for spark plugs, I've got the NGK R's, BPR 6ES's in here. I'm pretty sure I'm going to change to the Champion RN12YC. I think that's what's available at my local parts store, so I'll probably get the Champions instead. I think the stock plugs the car calls for, off the top of my head, are the RN9YC, but the RN12 are a little bit hotter, so we'll go with those. Alright, since we're going to be doing a valve adjustment, we're going to go ahead and take the valve cover, rocker cover off, and it's pretty easy with these Le Mans style cover fasteners. We'll just unhook the vacuum line to the brake servo and a few other emissions lines, and we'll take that cover off and have a look at the valves. Okay, valve cover's off, and I always like to do just a quick inspection. First of all, to make sure this little screw is in the rear of the rocker shaft, because if that screw is not there, then you lose your oil pressure, and you will lose all of your oil flow to the rocker shaft as well. Looks like I've got oil everywhere, which is good, so I don't see anything that looks unusual. Looks like my springs are in good shape. Looks like my push rods are all still in good shape. So anyway, we'll go ahead and we'll start adjusting the valves. I've done a previous video on valve adjustment, so I don't think I'm going to bore you with doing another one. So anyway, I'll go ahead and do that off camera, and we'll come back when we're done. Okay, I'm going to use the Robert Bentley book as my guide to adjust my valves. And there is a procedure under the regular maintenance section on page 27 in my edition of the Bentley for the valve clearances here, set to intake and exhaust 2.010. There's also a more in-depth, and I find this kind of appropriate, if I go to page 123, there's also another full sequence on valve clearance check and adjust here indicated. It doesn't actually tell you what they need to be set to, but it does tell you the procedure for doing it. So there you go. So we're going to go ahead and grab our feeler gauges, and we're going to adjust our valves. Alright, valves are now adjusted. The only one that was a little bit out of whack was number 11. The rest were all pretty good, just minor adjustments on a few others. So we're good to go there. We'll probably put the valve cover back on now and secure that with the Le Mans style fasteners again, and hook back up our vacuum hoses and our emissions controls, and then we'll move on to something else. We've got the valve cover back on, and we've got the nuts back on, and of course we have to make sure that they're all aligned properly. We've polished the top of the radiator. I'm sure we'll have to do it again after we screw around with installing the electric fan. So what we're going to do now is we're going to polish the radiator shroud, the stainless steel shroud, and I've got a stainless steel polish I'm just using, or a polish that's safe for stainless steel. Just using one that I've got kicking around. Hang on, let me just get myself situated. I'm just going to use this Blue Max, or whatever it's called, Blue Magic metal polish, chrome, aluminum, stainless steel, blah blah blah. So that's what we're going to go ahead and polish this stainless steel, the side of the shroud we'll start with, and get this looking a lot better. This has actually been bothering me for quite some time, so it'll be good to get this cleaned up. We're just going to be using some metal polish that I've got kicking around. This is Blue Magic. It's pure magic. Anyway, it's safe for chrome, aluminum, stainless steel, etc. So we'll give this a shot, and we'll see if we can get that to look a little better. Alright, there, that looks a lot better. Makes me a lot happier. Anyway, we'll do the other side. Alright, that looks a lot better. I'm happier with that now that that's all polished back up. It's got a few scratches in it from being on the car for 11 years, but still in pretty good shape. Anyway, so obviously we're going to have to wipe it down again once we get our fingerprints all on it when we install it back on the car, but at least it's clean for now, and we can move on to something else. Maybe we'll start cleaning the interior of the engine bay while we have that access. So I'm going to break out my just some detailer and some terry cloths, some microfiber cloths, and just go to town inside there and clean it up best I can. So that's looking pretty clean in that area up front now. We've got a few more little touch-ups to do, but not too bad. I think what we'll do now is we'll take the overflow bottle inside, and we're going to try to soak it in some bleach. It's looking a little worse for wear. It's over here somewhere. So yeah, we'll see if we can whiten that bottle up a little bit. It's looking a little dark. So we'll see if we can clean this up and get ready to put it back in the car once we get that radiator put back in. Not the radiator, the electric fan. Duh. Alright, just coming up to 6 p.m. and we're back from our trip to the parts store. I had to go to two different stores. Of course, the first store I went to only had 2 packs of the RN12YCs. As I mentioned, the stock plugs for the TR6 are the RN9YC, so these are a little bit hotter. This engine's a little tired, actually burns a little oil. I think the rings are a little old, so it's got a little bit of blow-by, so the little hotter plugs helps to keep them a little bit less fouled up, so that's why we're running these plugs. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and install them and get them back in the car, so everything looks good down there, nice and clean. So we'll get the get a little bit of where did I put it now? Here it is here. I'm going to throw some copper anti-seize on the threads, and we'll get those plugs back in there. I should have mentioned it's probably worthwhile to also check the spark plug gaps. I like to gap mine somewhere between 0.025 and 0.030. So these were already gapped. These were more like 0.040 to 0.035. So I've closed up the gap a little bit, and we're at about 0.025 at the moment. So we'll go ahead and install them. Okay, so we've got the plugs and the distributor cap back in place. So the next thing for us to do is to reinstall or reorientate the alternator and get the drive belt or the belt put back on. So we're going to do that. We've got the fastener standing by over here, new lock washer. So we'll lift that alternator up and get it back on its bracket and get it fixed in there. Alright, here's my bottle experiment, soaking it in bleach for about 6 hours. It's definitely cleaner, but still not perfect. I didn't expect it to come out perfect, but it's definitely better. I think I can live with the bottle. I think I'm going to have to steal the brand new return pipe, or the overflow pipe, from my TR250 project that I have sitting up in storage, and put that new pipe on, because that one's just a little grungy looking. So anyway, we'll go with the old bottle and maybe the new line. And I think that's about all I can do for this evening until I install that radiator fan tomorrow. We're pretty much done everything we can do. So we've got Ellen coming up tomorrow to help me with the wiring and the electric fan install. So that'll be a nice visit. I believe his son Nick is coming with them. So we look forward to that tomorrow. Be good to have an extra set of hands in the garage to do that. We may need to fiddle around a little bit. I have a feeling that the fan I ordered, which is a 16-inch fan down there, I think that fan is going to be a tiny bit too big. Not width-wise, but top and bottom. It seems to be fouling on the radiator protection shield at the bottom. And it may be because this is an aftermarket radiator. Obviously the aluminum radiator, it's a Wizard Rad. So I think we can probably overcome that by slightly elevating the mounting points of the radiator. I don't think that's going to affect too much. I think the bottom hose has probably got a little bit of stretch in it, so it shouldn't affect the bottom hose. It shouldn't affect really the top fit of the shroud. So anyway, we'll figure it out tomorrow. I do have a backup plan, and that's to steal an old smaller electric fan from my TR3A project. That came off the old race car, so I have that as a potential backup. I think that looks like it's about it could be a 12 or a 14-inch fan, which will definitely fit on that if required, if we need to go to a downsized fan, if the 16-inch fan is not going to work. That's my preferred way to go, but there's the backup plan. So that's it for now, guys. We'll get out here tomorrow morning, and we'll continue on with the electric fan installation. So what I think I might do this evening, since we're at a bit of a standstill as far as working on the car, is I think I might go back to the auto parts store and actually purchase a battery. I didn't buy one earlier when I was there earlier today because I didn't have the dimensions off of the Optima battery that I took out of the car, and I wanted to give that a quick measurement just to make sure I get something that's along the same size, width, height, etc., and same cranking amps, same post configuration, etc. So I didn't check that before I went to the store this afternoon, so we'll do some measurements and head back there tonight and make that purchase. Alright, just coming up to 9 p.m. and we've made it back with a new battery. Unfortunately, the new battery is not going to work. I'm trying to find a specific size that fits within my battery box, and this one is a little bit too wide for the battery box, and then it's going to be an issue with the hold down clamps. They're not going to be able to reach as far as I want them to. The other issue with the other battery I had was the battery was too tall, but it's actually narrower, so I need to find something in the middle with a maximum height of about 7 inches so that my bars will reach, and a maximum thickness of about, I think, 6 3/4 to 7 inches as well. So I'm going to go back. I looked up the battery that they suggested for the car. You can actually do a lookup for the TR6, and that was going to be too big as well. So anyway, I think what I'll do tomorrow is I'll bring the battery box in with me and actually take some measurements of the battery that I had in it, and I'll bring those and I'll see what I can fit as far as it fitting comfortably in that battery box. So that's the plan for tomorrow, so we'll have to make a trip back to the parts store tomorrow at some point or the following day. Anyway, not getting done tonight.